Princess Banu entered the palace and saw the Sultan sitting in despair. When she asked the reason for his sorrow, the Sultan replied, "What is the use of being a ruler if a mere thief can sneak into my palace and take whatever he pleases?" Banu scoffed, "I think all the servants are conspiring with that wretch. But don't be disheartened, father. There is a way to catch him and reclaim your crown. Capture that old traveler again, and announce to the entire kingdom that his eyes will be gouged out and he will be imprisoned in the princess's palace. That scoundrel will come to rescue him for sure." As soon as the Sultan issued the order, the soldiers seized the old traveler. However, instead of harming him, the Sultan ensured he was comfortably placed in a royal chamber. Meanwhile, a royal decree was spread across the land, declaring the old man's imprisonment and the cruel fate awaiting him. Upon hearing this, the young man's blood boiled with rage. He clenched his fists and muttered, "Since they couldn't capture me, they took the old traveler instead. Enough is enough. It's time to end this once and for all." That night, the princess's palace was heavily guarded. Elite soldiers stood watch at every corner, armed to the teeth. Even the Sultan himself, disguised in ordinary attire, patrolled the grounds. But suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoed from the princess's chamber. There on the floor lay Princess Banu. The Sultan rushed in, his heart pounding, her body deathly blue. Panic spread as the royal physician was summoned. After a tense examination, he turned pale and with a trembling voice declared, "Forgive me, your majesty, but the princess is no more. She was bitten by a venomous snake." A wave of unbearable grief crashed over the Sultan. He wailed, "No, my child, you cannot leave me. Without you, I have no reason to live." The entire palace was drowned in mourning. Just then, the vizier's eyes fell on a chair in the room where the Sultan's missing crown was placed. He turned to the Sultan and said, "Forgive me, your majesty, but this is no coincidence. That thief has struck again. He left behind your crown and took the princess's life." Princess Banu's death left the Sultan in unbearable grief, and he wept the entire night. By morning, following royal customs, Princess Banu was laid to rest. The entire city mourned her passing. An eerie silence filled the streets, shops remained closed, and people prayed for her soul. The next day, when the Sultan visited her grave to offer flowers, he was struck with horror. The grave was dug open and Banu's body was missing. The shock was too much for him. He collapsed to the ground. The vizier rushed to his aid, splashing cold water on his face to revive him. But even as he regained consciousness, the Sultan seemed lost, staring at everyone as if they were strangers. After 4 days of treatment, he finally came to his senses. The grief of losing Banu was immense, but the disappearance of her body tormented him even more. Determined to uncover the truth, he summoned the finest spies from across the neighboring kingdoms, ordering them to search every corner of the city for his daughter's remains. But what the Sultan didn't know was that the one who had taken Banu's body had already left the kingdom far behind. The grave robber was none other than the young man who had vowed to shatter Banu's pride. Riding swiftly through the night, the young man carried Banu's lifeless body on his horse, racing past the borders of Baghdad.